And we're live. Hello all, and welcome to the INVICTUSCON 2025 Malevolent Q&A. My name, as always, is Mr. Harlan Guthrie, but I am handing it off to Ren for this evening. Ren, I hand the camera to you.
Here's your blood and sand, Mr. Guthrie.
Oh, thank you.
Anything else? Another INVICTUSCON, perhaps?
Oh! How are you, Ren?
I'm good. I'm so excited that INVICTUSCON is finally here. There's been so much prep and thought and excitement, and now it's here, and I hope that everybody watching is just as excited as we are.
I mean, a huge congratulations goes to you as the audience claps, I'm pretty sure. Because a lot of this has been you and on your planning and all that kind of stuff. And people are amped that you and I are back together. The dynamic duo. Maybe a better, I don't want to be Batman. But yeah, I'm really pumped. No. I'm pumped to answer all these questions and avoid as many as I can.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get into it. And speaking of that, before we launch into it, I want to tell the audience, if this is your first time watching one of these, about a recurring bit we did last year, and we're going to do it again, called 8 Ball. Patrons, don't get excited. It's not that kind of 8 Ball. There will be no singing tonight. Although there might be.
I was going to say, let's not be too hard and fast here.
Sometimes there's questions that Harlan either can't answer because of spoilers or would rather leave up to the listener to decide, their own headcanon. But instead of not asking the question at all, because it is a patron perk to ask questions, we'll be consulting the 8 Ball for answers. And we'll see what the 8 Ball has to say.
Shall I press one for example?
Yes.
Press the one I pressed for you so that it's still fresh. Here we go. Random press.
Help, Harlan has trapped me in this recording software. I know I sound like a robot, but I'm a real person in here. You have to believe me. I'm trapped in...
There you go. That one's almost like more of a gag than an answer, but there's a slew.
It'll fit something. Yeah. All right. Without further ado, let's get into it. We've got 2 hours. There were 93 people who submitted questions, so got a lot of fans. All right.
Well, I should say thank you to everyone who submitted, and thank you to everyone who's hanging out here tonight. We're going to reveal some really dark secrets tonight.
Deep, dark secrets for both of us. We're both going to get canceled.
Hashtag boy life.
Boy life. Boy life. Amazing. All right. First question. Seer of Time. In season 5, there have been quite a few new tracks you've composed. Do you have a song you're most proud of in season 5? And what did the process of composing that one look like? Had you thought about it much previously? How did you decide what topics or themes you wanted to explore with that new favorite track?
Lovely question, Seer of Time. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love, like last year, I love when people ask about music. Season 5 does have a lot of new music. It has... I think Lost was season 5 as well, or the end of season 4. So I have Lost, which is like John's theme, Kane's theme, which is kind of just minimal. I have something called Variants on a Witch, which is like the witch's theme. I have something called The Maze, which was the labyrinth. I have Malum. I have How Far We've Come, which is like kind of a cello piano duet. I have a remix master of Thoreau's Lullaby. I have the Friar's Lantern, which comprises 3 different pieces. I have Castle Carringford themes. I have something I've called The Journey Home, which is like kind of the more medieval sounding a theme. I have a song called Evening with Scratch. And I have a song that I can't say the title of, but current patrons could guess. But it's painfully too revealing. But I would say the piece that I'm most proud of is a forthcoming piece that great old ones have gotten to listen to, and Ren, and it's called The Wager, which, spoilers, is the title of part 52, or will be. And I am most proud of it because it is composed in a way that I've never done before. It's not just a straight piano theme. It's orchestral in nature. It's got a lot of different moving parts to it. But in terms of the actual way I recorded it, Joe was in the kitchen with the kids, I think feeding Marie, and I was sitting at the piano, and I just kind of had this little theme, and you can hear that theme actually if you are a patron but haven't heard the orchestral theme. You can hear it a little bit at the beginning of chapter 256 and in 257. It's just kind of these two notes that are directly against each other, and they almost sound like they're butting up against each other. And I took inspiration from, this sounds super pretentious, but from an Ennio Morricone song from one of my favorite movies called The Legend of 1900, where it's a walk up. It's like dun 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 dun, but the third note is two notes butting up against each other. It always sounds off. And they actually reused it in the Will Smith film called 7 Pounds. Anyway, the long and short of it is, when I heard these two notes that you don't normally play two notes that are directly beside each other together because it sounds a little weird, but I kind of liked it. So I worked that into a theme, and I spent a lot of time, having different instruments and breaking it down. And I'm really excited for the storytelling that this song is going to do in part 52, The Wager. So that is the song I'm most proud of for season 5, but I've definitely done the most composing I've done for season 5. I'm going to release all of them eventually, or the ones I'm most proud of, I should say. And I love that question. Thank you so much for asking. I think that answered it all.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Awesome. And reminder to put the question up on screen.
Oh, I totally forgot. I got lost.
It's okay.
There we go.
All right. Second question. Another sound design question. Soup says, your soundscapes are incredible. I'm continuously blown away by the audio quality of every episode. What is your process when it comes to audio mixing? Do you often record your own sounds, or do you borrow from other sound libraries and databases?
Almost never do I record my own sounds. I only do that when it's mainly because I'm lazy. In fact, I've had moments where I'm like, oh, it'll be really easy to get this paper, just hold 2 pieces of paper and make the sound that I want. But I'm like, I'll just find paper that I have. So I use almost exclusively libraries, just because to me, it doesn't matter. Who cares? To me, it's like language. If you can communicate your idea to the person so that they understand, then it's effective, and it doesn't have to be specific. Some other people, and no shade on them, they get really painfully over the top to be like, well, this is a crank window. But to me, it's like communication. Get the point across. Be specific with your sound, but don't worry too much, because at the end of the day, you've succeeded if people understand that. But there are a few times where I have recorded my own sound effects, or more often than not, sequences that I know I'm going to reuse again, so that I don't forget exactly what it sounds like. Because you can have a sound effect be compiled of 7 different, and then exporting that and kind of creating it, that being your own, is kind of easier than trying to recreate it every time. So I have created blocks. Yeah. Especially with the show being the kind of show that we've seen multiple times, like in The Nightmare, where I revisit scenes. Having going back and knowing exactly what I used at that point is really important. So but yeah, it's really fun.
Third question. 2 people asked similar questions. Graham and Ivy both asked about the Call of Cthulhu campaigns. What's your thought process when it comes to deciding which characters to include or references to include? How do you decide what story elements from those campaigns are going to get added to the canon of Malevolent?
At first, it was a little bit of a leaning on it, especially around season 2. I think I was too nervous to separate myself from it, because all of our fans at that point, or a large part of our fans at that point, were fans of the RPGs, online. So it kind of felt like a disservice to not really finish their stories. But as I branched out, I've treated the characters and moments like that more in the sense of Easter eggs than story points, I suppose, because I love a lot of them. But number one, I don't enjoy making something or adding something to the show that only really feels beneficial if you have knowledge. What I love is adding something that, if you have the knowledge, is better. It's enhanced, where you're like, oh, I know Petra from Call of Cthulhu Game 2. The Saltzman name being related to Malevolent makes my understanding of Daniel Saltzman better. But if it's I don't know who this character is and I don't know why they're important, it doesn't feel like a wink and a nod. It feels like you're leaving people out.
Yep.
So it's a fine balance. I would say it's when it feels nice and when it feels like it enhances is the easiest way. But for better or for worse, I'm trying to move past those for various reasons. Listen, I'm still great friends with Chris, who is in a lot of those games. I love him to death. And obviously Joe played a major part. But, Michael, who was in Witch's Mark, made it very clear a long time ago when we kind of stopped talking that he didn't really want anything to do with anything that we do. So it's kind of been like, okay, I'll cut his character out of it because it's kind of his character. He invented it. I'll mention him by name, but I'm not going to do more with it. And when you're taking a game, to a degree, you're taking other characters from other people. You know what I mean? So It's kind of a fine line. Obviously, again, Joe and Chris would never mind, which is why I use and abuse Petra and Henry McFarland.
Henry would be okay with that, I think.
Oh, 100%.
A related question from Dawn. How do you go about figuring out which specific Eldritch Lovecraftian gods to put in Malevolent? Especially since we've gotten a newer one recently.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't worry too much about it. I don't really have a process. Honestly, it's a bit backwards, I would say. For some of them, I write the character, and then I kind of look back at like what Lovecraftian god would fit best into this, because I want to have my own voice. I've never really felt beholden to Lovecraft for many reasons, beyond a human piece of garbage shit. Like the mythos and the unknown aspect of it, to me, is also just a large part of it. Like, to me, to understand the Lovecraftian mythos as it is means that 90% of the in-universe texts would have to be wrong, because it's all about the unknowable. So if you were to say, well, no, this is the definitive version of Nyarlathotep or of this god because XYZ, I would say, well, XYZ could be wrong. It's no one knows. That's the whole point of an alien entity. So to me, what I really like doing is creating something that feels mine, and then recognizing where it could fit in the pantheon that does exist, so that people have touchstones, but still I don't feel beholden to fitting into these lines, which I do think sometimes works against some of the like conspiratorial nature of some of the audience, where they're like, oh, well, it's got to be this because of the purple eyes. And I'm like, nah, I just thought purple was cooler than whatever the fuck it said. You know what I mean? So
totally. This gets into the next question too, from Alan Cockram.
I want to jump on. Hold on. Dawn said if we want to send fan art to your team, there's a PO box in the thing. Oh. I only say that because I love when people send me fan art. I just want to selfishly put that out there for a second. Because I recently got a pin. I made a video of it by Growing in the Dark or Glowing in the Dark, Liam, and it's amazing. And I was blown away, and I wear it. And I'm just wanted to say that. I'm so sorry. Continue.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sure Queen is linking to the channel as we speak in Discord.
Who's this question? Alan Cocker.
Oh yes, but you were talking about like kind of making the character and then retrofitting, and I think that sort of answers this question, but I'd like to hear more of it. What he says, the gods of Malevolent and its related work seem to be more underpowered, maybe vulnerable perhaps, than they are in the mythos itself. It's an unusual but interesting position to frame them in, at least compared to more genre typical works. What made you decide to make them that way?
The perspective, in my opinion, I'm going to just say, in my opinion, and I'm going to preface that with everything that I answered tonight, though I will forget to say it. But in my opinion, the Lovecraft perspective, the mythos perspective, is about the human experience against the unknowable, the unfathomable horror, the stuff that you can't comprehend. And every single one of those stories either ends in death or madness. But my particular brand of horror is about hope. It is about the human instinct. It is about Invictus. It is about the will to survive. And to me, and this was sort of a thesis that I stumbled upon as I wrote Malevolent, when you look at the human will to survive in the face of the abyss, of the odds that will be against you forever, and then you put that against, surviving in the wilderness, yes, of course, the human's going to come out. But what happens when you take that will to survive against the face of death, against something that is meant to be unbeatable? And in that space, I think we create a really interesting question, which is like, when you are facing down the barrel of this alien gun that is meant to be too much for you, what do you do? And that space is very creative for me because I love examining those concepts. Equally, to tell a compelling or interesting story, you do have to decide whether these are truly unstoppable, and to a degree they are, and we're going to see that, or is there holes within this logic? And I strongly feel that there is no pure. The idea of malevolent is very much in the human experience being gray. We are all good and bad. We have all successes and failures. We are human. That's the nature. And I wanted to expose not necessarily the human side of the alien mythos, but the gray side of it. The fact that these seemingly two-dimensional, unstoppable monsters actually do have elements within them that question those aspects, because I thought that was a really fun place to play in. And I totally recognize that there are some creatives out there that say, well, no, that goes against the very nature of Lovecraftian. It should be, nope, this is a wall that you run up to and you die against. But I prefer not to do that. It's not my vibe. I don't enjoy it. It's the same way I run Call of Cthulhu. Most people run Call of Cthulhu games until your character is burned into the ground like a cigarette butt, dead and gone or mad. And I don't prefer that. I love playing with those horrors, but I like to root for the humans.
Absolutely. I have so many follow-up questions, but we don't have the time. So I'm just suppressing them for our post-season 5 Q&A.
Write them down.
Yep. Wayward asks, I'm very intrigued by your choice of gods for the Friar and Barnabas. Was there any specific reason you chose them? Was there any choice the patrons could have made that would have allowed us to learn more about them in the show? Or were they always meant to be more for set dressing, so to speak?
Good question. It was Gloon, and I forget the Friars. It was the Friars was very specific. It was like a blood god, like it was like fleshy and like
Neo. Can't spell it.
I don't remember either. But
yeah.
I'll put this on screen. Hold on, where was it? There we go. Yeah, it definitely. I thought that the two gods sort of align with them. I don't want to say too much because I one of the things I'm recognizing is, there's an element of when I do add these gods and creatures to the show, I don't want to. Oh, Nyagatha, I think it is Nyagatha.
Yeah, I was trying to say it. I couldn't.
I can only say it as Barnabas Nyagatha. The idea of when I introduce these characters or these gods, I don't want them to be entirely one and done. I do want to. The way I kind of had a horror like leak in and then kind of get a confrontational moment. So I don't want to speak too much, but I will say the Occam's razor answer here is that Gloon and Nyagatha seemed very indicative of Barnabas and the Friar's personality. And I thought, I was kind of like, what kind of, and I read about the gods. So that was a good example of like a time where, because they weren't necessarily just set dressing, but because I did want to kind of showcase a world, we're in a different dimension in season 5. I wanted to showcase a world where maybe these gods are a little bit more face value, the way you might find them in a book written for Call of Cthulhu in the 1980s. You know what I mean? Rather than like my version of the world, because that's kind of the fun of multidimensional themes. But anyway, no, it was specific, but for the obvious reasons.
It really did make it feel like we were truly in a different dimension. There had been moments I had felt it up till then, but it was meeting the other people truly and seeing how different it was. You did it.
It felt a bit like, and that whole scene was very inspired by Call of Cthulhu. Like I had always intended to make another campaign called Blackstone, and that's kind of where this was. So those are almost like other player characters,
So cool. Fish asks, what inspired Scratch/Lilith's design? The violet skin and silver eyes combo have always really struck me. Did you pull that from anything in particular, or did it just feel right?
The violet eyes and silver hair. So I'm waiting for the question to come up so I can post it so that people. There we go. No, I think canonically Lilith has violet eyes, doesn't she? I'm trying to remember now. Oh no, she has silver eyes, I think. And I went with violet eyes. Violet. Oh, the violet skin and silver eyes. Yeah. Yeah, I just thought because the way Scratch and Lilith sort of came about was I wanted to invert what the expectation for Lilith would be for Scratch a little bit, I believe. I mean, this is where it gets tough because it's like over a year ago. But from what I remember, my intention was that Lilith has the eyes and sort of skin, and then I inverted the idea of his skin being violet and her a part of her being silver as well, just to sort of hint. But it was very difficult because I wanted to walk that line without anything being too obvious. You know, to be specific is the death of a mystery, right? Like you got to keep it. And thankfully I have the easiest mechanical device for just John saying less, you know, which is difficult sometimes. In the latest chapter, this is not spoilers, but in the latest chapter, I give time for John to describe Lilith in a way that I envisioned her, but I couldn't really fit in the tone of the scene. And a lot of people have said this before too, right? Like, you know, a creature shows up and you don't want John to be like, oh, you know, the spider is standing there and it's got big hairy legs. And then you're like, awesome. And it's like, okay, each spindly strand of hair has this, and you're like, okay, shut up, like we're running from a spider, right? You gotta walk that line. So sometimes I have to push things off like that. But yeah, Fish, to answer your question simply, I believe it was a wink and a nod to what Scratch was to ultimately become, and I inverted or sort of swapped around the color scheme to kind of make it a subtle hint.
Lovely. Autumn and Pi both want to know about Gerard. There was a theory floating around during the release of 49 that Gerard may have been affiliated with the King in Yellow due to his visions of architecture. If we had decided to follow him and Barnabas, would we have found out more about his allegiances? Was Gerard intentionally implied to be connected to the Sleeping City / the Dreamlands?
I was like, who's Gerard?
Oh my God.
I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's a mood.
Gerard was the first guy who died, right? Langward? No, wait. Hold on. Gerard is the friar. No, wait.
No. No.
Okay, who's Gerard? Oh, the French guy.
Yeah.
Right. People are so upset. Listen, that episode had like 7 people, different characters in it.
When you're a writer, the things that you forget about your own writing,
but this is why I have notes, so we're all good. I'm going to look. Okay, so the question was Gerard intentionally implied to be connected to the Sleeping City, the Dreamlands? No. I can answer that right off because that totally seems out there for me. What was the connection that people saw between him and the Dreamlands?
He mentioned architecture, and people took that and really went with it because
he was just an architect, I think. So it's fun for that section. I literally wrote a document in my folder of Malevolent that says the murder at Castle Carringford. Yeah, murder at Castle Carringford. So I have each of the characters' backgrounds, and here I have Gerard du Vanduli. And he talks. He's an architect, and Everard's sort of speech says, your designs, architecture, art are amongst the most progressive your land has seen. The architecture you've designed will be most assuredly widely used over the next short while as our countries continue to grow together as one. Your mind dreams of vision, places that only truly blessed can imagine, cities devoted to a singular purpose beyond ourselves. So I totally recognize where that overlap came. I would imagine now that I'm reading it that, I probably did write a little bit of a hint, but it was very quickly forgotten in the meat of the moment because, well, and here's the other thing. You can't follow every thread. To make Gerard, like a character like Gerard, That's why I didn't hear it, because I didn't hear it that way. I only said it French in my brain.
Gerard.
to follow, the hard G, but to follow like every thread of a character would become far too complicated to follow narratively. You'd be like, so you kind of have to tantalize and tease, and unfortunately, that was one of kind of the fallouts of dealing with it. But each of the characters in the murder were inspired by real people. So I basically did research on that era, and I would take a biography of somebody that I wanted and sort of just swap names and places and sort of things to make it more my own, but to give it the framework of logic in that time, because I did want to make it make sense that, okay, this would be something someone would worry about in this era. The second part of this question was, if we had followed him somewhere, would we have learned more?
Yeah, we'll learn more about his allegiances, because he split off with,
Yes. Basically, my plan was, whoever they decide, they were going to learn more about. This would be the moment of like, this becomes kind of your murder buddy, you know what I mean? Or you're the person you're going to follow with. And let me tell you this, it is so difficult to write a murder mystery when you don't have control over where the players are going. So I did not want to dedicate time putting like tons of background into a character that would be the first to die potentially. So I was like, well, this has got to be, kind of vague. But so now that I realize it, thinking about it, I would say yes, there was probably a 20% chance I did it on his biography and then forgot about it for the rest. So yes, there probably was an intentional there that I did a bad job at remembering.
And in fact, I'll go one further and say, yes, absolutely. It was all intentional the whole time. Harlan's a genius. Everything is connected. Every little
it is
thing that
like that.
Yeah.
Only Everard saw it that way, I guess.
Daisy, the history buff, wants to know, why did you decide to have Lilith stalk Arthur as an owl, specifically a great horned owl? The vibes.
Why did I think an owl? It's a great question. Again, I'm sure there's a reason for it. Was there a reason for the owl? Joe? Was there a reason I picked Lilith to be an owl? Or no? Yeah, but was there a reason beyond that? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I think owls were cool. I think there was a lot of there's a lot of folklore around that time.
I mean, Lilith.
Yeah, no, I think it was more the folklore of the time that like I believe when I was researching the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, there was a lot of fear around owls being an omen of things to come. And I just thought it'd be really cool if that was the creature that she chose, because it's kind of cliche, ravens and crows and stuff like that. Although people got really upset that a great horned owl wasn't in England or something like that, but
First of all,
sure.
It's not actually England.
Well, also, I don't think that's true. They're not. I was like, I don't think that's true. I'm pretty sure I Googled it right after someone said that, and I was like, yeah, no, that's not true. So,
you trusted somebody on the internet. That was your first. That was your first mistake.
I listened to somebody on the internet. That is even before trusting. I just
yeah.
Fragland. Is that what people call it? Fragland. Fragland.
Austin wants to know. I thought this question was very interesting. Austin wants to know: is Kane scared of anyone?
Wait, okay, well.
Yes, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
All right.
I think Yorick was right.
There you go. There's your answer.
There you go. That is a great... I picked that question because I knew it would seg perfectly into our first lightning round.
Oh, yeah. We got lightning rounds? Let's do it.
Yeah, we got a lightning round. So it's just rapid fire. The rules are simple. I'm going to pepper you with questions, and you have to answer as quickly as possible. Just the first thing off of the dome. You
Pinch
can
and pepper me the questions?
Yes, absolutely. And I know last year we ended up moving one to like a longer answer, but we're going to try not to do that this year.
Okay, so no long answers. Got it. One word answers. Okay.
And a lot of these I think are going to be 8 balls. So.
Okay, my hand is on the 8 ball.
All right. One, Nuko, what color is Arthur's hair?
Brown.
What did Bella study in college?
Oh, seamstress. Wait, is this a trivia? Because I did say that. She was a seamstress.
Listen, I'm not asking these questions.
Okay.
I'm just the messenger, okay?
No, I just wanted to make sure that I was like, wait, are you quizzing me or am I?
No,
I just want to make sure.
Saturnines asked that question, and Nuko.
I don't know. Whatever. Keep going.
Nuku,
We're good.
Okay. Sorry. Now I'm stuck on. I want to get this person's name right. I can't move on until I get this person's name right. Nukume. Nukume was the person who asked what color is Arthur's hair.
Nice.
Bless you. Finley asks, do you have a middle name in mind for Arthur?
Next question, please.
Oh, that worked out well.
Rory Markle asks, would there be any subtle or obvious physical tells that John is talking to Arthur?
What are you, a Parker truther?
O'Kelly asks, considering the heterochromia that he's described to have in the appearance of other related characters later in season 5, I've got to ask, is Malum actually Nietzsche? How do you pronounce that character's name?
Oh, Nietzsche?
Nietzsche.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. Bird asks, does Yorick have alliances to an individual or individuals that we as the listeners have not met or are not yet currently aware?
You've heard it here first, folks. Season 6 of
Oh, never mind, not that one.
Larson was actually named after Gary Larson, creator of the cartoon, The Far Side.
That's true.
That was like trivia. Yeah.
Jinx asks, what was the movie you imagined John wanted to see that Arthur said no to in season 4?
It Happened One Night.
Oh, what a great movie. Balanlo asks, will the meaning of Dies Irae in relation to Arthur and John be revealed or spoken about more in depth sooner rather than later?
Yes. I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious soon.
Oh, God. All right.
I'll say this too, actually. Oh, I can't. Never mind. Okay.
Anonymous says, will we get to see John become capable of more powers?
In the movie, Marie will be played by Dolly Parton.
Hell yeah. Oh, that's a great casting. Carcino asks, will we ever see Noel or Oscar again?
Why do I always get this question? The truth is I forget.
Perfect. Perfect. You love when the universe aligns. All right. That was the end of the first lightning round. We've got a couple more, but now we're going to get back into the meteor questions.
Meteor?
Meteor.
Come on. Someone else out there has seen it, right? Cool. I will say this just as an expansion of the Dies Irae thing.
Yes.
There is a line in the train episode at the very end said by the butcher. That is interesting. That's all. Let's keep going.
Oh, man. All right. Being the moderator is like, I don't get to go and all right. Anonymous and Apollo both wanted to know more about Alia. What was the idea behind her character? The sect of witches connection, her healing magic and prophecies ? Are also interesting, and I feel like we barely scratched the surface mechanics wise of her powers. Interested in any insight you can share.
Yeah, I wanted this time in season 5 to feel really fantastical and magic and like, you know, but I didn't want to lose the darkness of the time. You know, as I said, everything is gray. You know, Arthur is a character who's killed his child, or his child has died because of his neglect. And I wanted a character that had abilities that we haven't seen before in another human, but also had a troubled, you know, or not troubled, a horrific like way that this has happened. And I don't want to say too much about Alia's sect. Suffice to say, this is going to be a big reveal for everybody. So come in close, kids. Malevolent is the 4th story in my universe. We started with Call of Cthulhu Game 1. We moved on to Call of Cthulhu The Witch's Mark, Call of Cthulhu Game 2, and now Malevolent. It is not the end of the stories that I want to tell in this universe. So certain things, like a sect that I create that feels a bit like a throwaway, may have implications for other things that I want to tell or expand upon, or just little world building things that I want. Now, to put that thought aside for a moment, going back to the original question, it's interesting because I hear a lot of people being like, oh, we barely got time with her and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, like we barely get time with a lot of characters. You know, Eddie in episode 1 walks in and then comes back later and dies. We don't get to know what his, shit is, She's just really interesting is her curse. It's like, because I made her. But truth be told, we spend a lot of time with her. She gets conversations with Arthur. She gets to talk to him. She gets conversations through, the whole 3 episodes that she's in. But I do think I wanted to show the fantasy of this world in another character, obviously beyond our protagonists, but also, frustratingly so to some of the audience, someone who also couldn't be like, yeah, here are all my powers, here's where I got them. Like, sometimes you have to limit things just so you don't give the whole egg, because then otherwise Arthur's just like, where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Alia?
Yeah, okay, nope, gotta save it for later. Okay, Daisy the history buff and Carrot Cup Jester both wanted to know about Yorick. First, sorry, Queen, I'm actually going to do Carrot Cup Jesters first. What was the inspiration for turning the Vanguard into Yorick, like not keeping him just as it was before? And then Daisy the history buff wants to know if we had chosen a different name, how would that have influenced his personality?
Oh, great question. Okay, so to answer question 1, the inspiration was multifaceted, I think. From the moment we pulled that tooth out of the head of Samantha, I always knew I wanted to do more with it. I knew I wanted to create a lore about the Vanguard, about the seer, about what this thing is. But I also knew that based on the trajectory of the show, I didn't want to focus on it right now. I didn't want them season 2 talking ad nauseum about the tooth or talking ad nauseum about, these are things that you kind of pace out. A lot of storytelling, as you and Trin and a lot of people here will understand, maybe or maybe not, is about pacing. It's not about having the ideas. It's about when to give the ideas. Like, that to me is the real art of it. And I knew I wanted more, but it couldn't come too soon. Additionally, the idea of having him be more in the way that I was envisioning was a goofier setting than, say, season 3 or 4. I also knew that I wanted to, as I've made very clear, I always wanted to go this direction for season 5, or at this point in the show, to back in time. And I knew if people were on board for that, then I could get away with wackier stuff. And so it was kind of a perfect storm of like timing of like, okay, when do I do this? And blah, blah. But truthfully, the inspiration largely comes from The Last Unicorn and that skull who drinks the wine on top of the bookshelf. And if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's my wife's favorite movie. And it's awesome. And I thought it was really funny. And it's a really good, weird character. It's funny because there's another character in Last Unicorn that I always think of with Cain. And it's a little bit of an inspiration for Cain. And he's the, is he a dragonfly? When he's flying around, and he's a butterfly, and he's playing the ukulele or something. And he's like singing a song. I forget what it is. It's like, "You Rascal You." It's a weird song. It's like a more modern song. He's like playing it around. He's like very bizarre and very wacky. But yeah, so media. Obviously, the things I love. I just pick out and want to put them into my show. And then yes, he would have been a different personality. I think not majorly, but I think Yorick was definitely the most thespian of the options, and I do think I leaned into that. It's sort of you know, the relationship with the audience is like any relationship. When I get a green light on a name like Yorick, it's the audience letting me know that, hey, we can be silly with this character. If they had picked something more stoic like Samantha, it's the audience telling me that the majority of people want him to be a little bit more, you know, not mundane, but a little bit safer. And to me, these are carryovers from role playing. You know, when you're playing with the cast and you introduce an NPC and his name is Borgon and everyone laughs, you're like, cool, Borgon's a standard. And if you introduce Borgon and everyone's like, yeah, I don't want to talk to that guy, you're like, cool, let's not go that direction. Let's keep it more serious, you know? So there you go. Borgon, canonical.
I want to see fanfic of Blorgon. I want to see fan art of Blorgon.
Samantha wasn't the stoic answer, just the more like normal answer. Like it was like
right.
Boring.
Yeah, boring.
That's what I want to say.
You could say it. It's your show.
It's true.
Yami asks, when did you decide on the murder mystery style plot for 48 and 49?
Oh man, that was cooking for so long. So I said this a little bit previous and probably in other conversations, but I had always intended after Call of Cthulhu 2 to take a break and then do an RPG of the Blackstone campaign, new characters, but set in medieval using Dark Ages Cthulhu. And I, way back then, envisioned this murder party where it starts off. The opening mission is that you've been called to a castle to meet with some lord, and you don't know why. And basically, it would have been a similar version of this. So really, I would argue that more than anything in Malevolent, the castle episodes, the 2-piece castle episodes, were the longest in terms of like what I had planned on the horizon. More than anything, I think those two are. Everything else falls after that.
Interesting.
Yeah, because even like, well, Arthur's backstory, as many people know, came first in a different format, but this is the first like specific to this world that I had planned on and wrote.
It always feels so good when you can actually get to something like that. Like when you have ideas, sometimes by the time you even get to that point, they don't fit anymore, or like you can't. So the fact that you actually got to execute on that.
But it was a double-edged sword because it also, no one else, but for me, it felt like this immense pressure. Because in my mind, I was like, I've had this on my like dream board to do since ever.
Yes.
And truth be told, gun to my head, I don't think I nailed it the way that I probably would have if I had just written a story. I'm very proud of what how it went out, but could it have gone better? Could I have done it? Could I have done it better? I don't know. Could it have gone better? Yeah, probably. But
well, to your point though, I mean, doing a murder mystery where you're blind to like the way that you did it is absolutely insane.
Really difficult. It is so
really
tough.
difficult. I can't think of a worse or a harder genre to do that in.
Yeah. And also like, you know, I had to make certain compromises based on just where our protagonists were, you know what I mean? Like it was really frustrating to a degree to have Arthur sick the whole time. You know, I wouldn't have had him sick, but that was a choice that was made by the patrons like 2 episodes earlier. And I kind of had to do it. So I was like, well, fuck. Like now he's sick. Like he's got to be sick through this whole damn thing. But you know, that's I loved him sick. Fuck off.
Peppers, you're gonna get the voice. You're gonna get the nagging voice.
Peppers. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you had a choice about the plague thing. I can't remember how, but it was all your fault. Trust me.
Speaking of our fault, Anonymous asks, in part 48, the castle, Arthur only talked to a handful of individuals before the killing spree started. Was there a specific individual you were hoping the voices would choose to interact with?
Who did they choose first? Barnabas?
Well, you
No.
had to talk them out of choosing the guy who didn't want to talk to anybody. I remember that.
Yeah, because everyone wanted to talk to Langward. I remember this
Yes.
because I kind of had the Langward was like a doctor. He was like this, and he hated Arthur, and he hated being there. And his patron deity was like very much like, "Fuck you! I'm not going to tell you shit." And everyone was like, "Let's talk to the mysterious silent man." I was like, "No, like." Listen, in real life, most people who don't want to talk to you and like make it clear through body language and voices, and he did. He was just like, I don't give a shit about you. And more than anything, it would have been a waste because they would have walked over and he would have been like look you up and down and like walk away.
Yeah.
And then it probably would have been, because this is how the scene comes out, it probably would have been Barnabas being like, come talk to me. You know what I mean? Like it would have gone that way.
People ended up voting for Barnabas, and we ended up talking to Barnabas.
So it ended up working anyway. But
but
I
was there
wouldn't have spoken to
anybody?
Barnabas.
Oh, really? Who would you have spoken to?
The friar. I think the friar.
Me
was
too.
really
That's who I voted for. Yeah.
Well, then you're right, Ren. You did a good job.
I got a good grade.
Plus. Me, listen, there was no right answer. I genuinely had.
There's never
The reason I tried to dissuade people from talking to Langward was because I knew they'd be disappointed.
Yeah.
I was trying to mitigate my own culpability. I knew people would be angry when they talked to him, and he was like, what are you doing? Because I had a very clear vision for who this character was. And when you're rolling dice and everyone's betting on this one thing and there's like this whole thing, I was like, man, they're just going to be angry at me. They're not going to be angry at me. So that's why I was kind of like, don't talk. Like, do it if you want, but recognize he's not going to say shit. And fair enough, they went a different direction. But I would have talked to the friar. I think he was an interesting character.
Yeah, he really was. We've got, I think somebody asked a question about him later, but a bunch of people asked about the inspirations for season 5. You've mentioned Army of Darkness and The Last Unicorn. Now that we've seen the season play out, are there any specific scenes or other unmentioned books or movies that helped inspire the many gut-wrenching moments this season? And was there anything you wanted to include that's like a specific reference but couldn't?
I was very inspired by Baldur's Gate 3, the video game. I think that the hag stuff, there's a great moment in Baldur's Gate 3 around a hag in her like undercroft. That's very cool. And just her design wasn't what I was envisioning for my hag, but like that interaction was very much like, sorry, let me get this up. Beyond that, let me run through it. The windmill is very Army of Darkness in my mind, but I've also had windmill on my horizons forever because that was like the last image of Call of Cthulhu Season 2. The womb and the sort of, the maggots and all that kind of stuff in the undercroft. I for some reason pictured The Witch, the Robert Eggers. I think just because like there's like brutality in that film that's not on camera. The first 10 minutes when the baby is taken and something happens with the baby, spoilers, there's like a real rebirth cycle to that, like the essence of a witch. And I thought that was really cool. And that inspired me to do that. The Road, I mean, heavy Prince of Thieves vibe, Robin Hood, when they're walking through. In the Malum scene, I was inspired by a number of things, including like The Road, still obviously, but there's a great movie called Seraphim Falls with Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson about two soldiers, one Confederate and one whatever the fuck the other guys were. Who were the other ones?
The Union.
I don't know. I'm not American.
Yeah.
Chasing each other down, and it gets near the end. It gets real hazy. It doesn't get dreamlike necessarily, but they really begin to lose elements of themselves. And John Hillcoat also, who directed the Road movie, directed a movie called The Proposition. And they're movies that are straightforward in terms of like their subject matter, like Westerns, both of them. But they have this veneer of their genre, but underneath have these really meaningful, poignant stories. And I feel like there is a lot of inspiration I took from those people. And I, at one point, started working on a story about a horse rider who was sort of on a dying earth. You know, the sun was about to explode and was getting hotter day by day as he was riding away from the sun. And as he was moving, he was having conversations with characters that were also trying to escape their fate. A lot of my themes deal with the inevitability of death and how we can protest that as long as possible. And this was sort of that. But anyway, one of the characters he interacted with was a character named Malum in my short story. And I took a lot of that character's essence and sort of reused it. But the long-winded answer is those films inspired that short story, which then I used in this. So in a way, those Westerns, Seraphim Falls and the Proposition, inspired my story, which then inspired that. Beyond that, yeah, like I said, Prince of Thieves, just the way the moving trees in Sherwood Forest and the castle. I mean, if you haven't seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or anyone out there, watch it. It's probably my favorite movie. But all the scenes of the castles are like lit by candlelight, so it looks very much like a castle, which is how I envisioned all of these hallways and stuff. Yeah, sorry, it's a long answer, but those are some of them. I'm sure there's more, but that's good.
Those were good, and now everybody has a list of things to go read and watch, which I love about the.
I mean, 51 also has a lot of inspiration, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I know the rain and the muck. John Hillcoat as a director is very good at communicating the physical conditions of the environment. Like in The Proposition, you'll see, there's flies all over them all the time. They're very it feels like a place that you could be, as uncomfortable as it would be. And that's something I really felt like I wanted to communicate, especially in 51. Anyway.
Okay, next question. Last question before another lightning round. An anonymous asks, in season 5, Arthur and John rely on the poem Invictus to pull through some bleak moments. Did you consider any other literature before selecting that one?
No, not for that moment. I mean, that was a specific moment. But there's a lot of literature and poems that I have obviously included in the show that mean a lot to me. Some that I have little notes that will be later in the show. Oh no. Might get saxophoned in a second. I can hear them outside. Our basement neighbor is practicing the saxophone for this first time. He's just a little kid in school. And he got an alto sax, but he goes out back to play. And sometimes we're gaming and you just hear honk, honk. It's really cute. But just if you start hearing honking in the background, I just heard some kids go back. That might be the case. But anyway, no, for that moment, Invictus was always kind of the important moment because Arthur had said that to Yellow, but John had never said that to Arthur. And to our knowledge, John had never heard that poem from Arthur either, which is a bit of a question mark too. But no, Invictus has always meant a lot to me personally as well. So I thought it was a fitting moment.
The first question I ever asked you was about Invictus.
Was it?
Yeah, it was for the 2023 Q&A. I asked you, has your understanding of being unconquerable changed since writing Malevolent?
But I gave a really good answer.
It was perfect.
Yeah, good.
Okay, time for another lightning round.
Yeah. All right. Pumped.
Veritas asks, which part of season 5 has been the hardest for you to write and why? No thinking, just answer.
256.
Anne-Marie asks, what is your voice modulation technique for the voice of John?
Nothing. I just go like this. You son of a bitch.
A&D asks, is the King in Yellow an avatar of Hastur in the Malevolent world, or is Hastur just a name that the king is referenced as?
Hummus.
There you go.
Excellent. Trinity asks, what more can you tell us about Bella?
Nothing.
Mad Bad Ash asks, what character did you have the most fun writing, excluding John and Arthur?
Percival.
Phoenix asks, can we know what the highly desired police station scene would have been like if we had voted for it?
Intriguing. Yeah, it would have been awesome.
It would have been so awesome. Freddy asks, in part 20, when Hastur is descending upon Arthur, a loud distorted sound announces his arrival. Is the sound some otherworldly trumpet, or is this Hastur's actual voice announcing himself?
I mean,
Malevolent actually is a prequel to Maleficent with Angelina Jolie.
I can see it. Izzy asks, settle the debate, who's got the thickest booty in the series?
I don't think so.
that one's apt. You're better than that.
Buttmouth and Cryptic Crackers both asked about Larson and Yellow. Are they alive in the Dreamlands? How are they handling the situation?
About who in yellow?
Larson?
Oh. Are they both alive in the Dreamlands?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Excellent. Saffron asks, have you ever regretted naming a previous episode something because you think that title would have fit another episode better?
Yes.
Follow-up question, which one?
Is that your question or is that theirs?
Don't worry about it.
I do wish I had named the company. No, I wished. Oh, you know what? No, I didn't want to name something. No. Yeah, I wanted the company to be something else. I can't remember what now, but I haven't used it yet. So the company was not a terrible name, but there's a better name for company that I wish I had picked, and I forget what it was. The Entourage or something. I can't remember. It had a double meaning, which I wish I had thought about it.
Interesting. Okay. CB Lad asks, what would you consider making another non-canon special like Benevolent? Liz always likes to say the more people ask, the less inclined you are to do it.
It's not that. It's I'd love to expand on this after.
Okay.
We'll keep going.
Okay. Well, at the end, a lot of people ask about like, what are your plans after, and are you going to do more Malevolent stuff?
Cool.
So
if someone remembers to ask me that, I'll answer it after.
Okay. Okay. On to round 3. We're an hour down, an hour to go.
What question are we at? I feel like we're over halfway.
We're at
We've been powering through.
Yeah.
We're doing good.
We're doing so good.
We're gonna wrap up early.
We're about halfway. But I gotta read this. One. It's a paragraph. Wayward asks, I mostly understand Kane's piano key multiverse metaphor, but I get tripped up trying to figure out how John and the King in Yellow fit into it all. Is there a Dreamlands for every key with the King in Yellow to match each John? Or are the Dreamlands like the Dark World with multiple realities feeding into it? If there was only one King in Yellow, was he simultaneously perceiving all of the versions of John at once, since they all stem from a singular instance of his being severed? Am I overthinking this?
Yes. Yes. Listen. None of this is real. So there are no rules.
None of this is real?
What you need to know is that what Kane told you is the truth, or rather what I told the audience. And the easiest way to think about it is that for the purposes of the story, until evidence is shown to you to question it, not evidence that you're extrapolating, but evidence that a character says, but wait a minute, doesn't that mean blah, 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 blah? Then it doesn't matter. Because the truth of the matter is, if you put Back to the Future out on a board, it doesn't make sense either. Neither does Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness and da-da-da. Because that's the nature of the beast. The question you need to ask yourself is, what story do you care about? If you want the final answer to all those questions, I promise you're going to be less satisfied than going, I'm just going to take what Kane says as face value and take away the Cole's notes. And the important thing that Kane tries to teach you in Intermezzo, he says twice. So if that's lost, go back and just notice whatever he says multiple times is the important bit.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Well, because I mean, again, the nature of stuff like this is Like, we're not comparing it to anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
Dimensions and time travels. There's no like
There's no
point to that and say, well, here's where I differ. It's all made up. You know?
Yeah, totally. This is a related question that I think is going to have the exact same answer from Zill. With Shub's existence having been removed from all timelines except for the one we follow, did the other Johns/entities' imprisonment in a book still play out similarly, or was there a different reason other Arthurs got stuck with a piece of the king? Because we do see multiple Arthurs and Johns. Do it. I saw you looking.
Yeah, but I have an answer.
Okay.
I will say, you'll see.
Oh.
But just for fun.
Next question, please.
You'll see. That's an
Sorry, I didn't
interesting
post
answer.
that one.
That's okay. Kara asks, I appreciate how thoughtfully Malevolent has been designed around the audio medium, but I'm wondering, with your film background, how your film background informs thoughts about how similar Lovecraftian horrors would translate to a visual medium, even if Malevolent, this particular story, isn't particularly adaptable to film. For example, how would the King in Yellow as an antagonist have to change if you could see him? So basically, how would Malevolent translate to a visual medium, especially the Lovecraftian horrors, which traditionally have been hard to film because they're supposed to be unknowable and
And this is the nature of the beast. And if I had an answer, trust me, Guillermo del Toro would be knocking down my door and being like, I want to hire you. The truth of the beast is this works in this medium because I don't need to worry about the visuals. I tend to think very visually in terms of the soundscaping and the way I write so that it feels like a physical environment. I think that helps a lot with people being taken away. But the truth of the matter is, I don't know. I really hope someone successfully does a Lovecraftian horror story. But I think you have to, like, I would say the most successful one I've seen isn't really even a Lovecraftian horror story. But the way that Underwater portrays the alien entities and Cthulhu is very cool. But it's secondary to the story, which is kind of the way you have to do it. Because the minute these become the focus, as the question way back when sort of I kind of talked about, these unknowable, unspeakable entities being visual on screen kind of undermine the idea that you're trying to present there.
Absolutely. So
having a different character focus story with the entities is probably the easiest way to do it. My story is more like Underwater than a true Lovecraftian novel.
Blue Rose Gardner asks, do you think the story will ever slow down enough for Arthur to show John more of the mundane enjoyments of his world? I was really hoping they would in New York, but they're always dealing with some issue or another, it seems. Probably not in this one.
What one? What are we talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
This season.
What are you talking about? Do I think the story will ever slow down enough for Arthur to show John the more mundane enjoyments of the world? Yes.
Interesting. They're just going to have like a nice camping outing.
I don't think it will ever become boring. That sounds boring. Ren, that's boring.
Ren, that's fucking boring, okay?
No. Listen.
Get it together.
I will say this. I think it's very interesting to see these characters doing those types of things, but it would still have to be in my way of storytelling, meaning you're never going to see John and Arthur at the theater watching a movie because that's boring. It might feel good theoretically, but it's a really boring scene. What's funny is talking about seeing the movie. And what could be funny is talking about it after the movie, but watching a movie would be boring. And I know you don't believe me, but trust me, it would be, because there's no way to do it in a good way.
Well, and like that's what slice of life fanfic is for those,
But would I love to see John and Arthur doing more mundane enjoyments for the purposes of story? Absolutely.
Right.
For example, we have a lot of mundane moments in Malevolent. The problem is the A story is still very much like, for instance, the train. We saw a lot of mundane moments on the train. Yep. So in a different reality, you could be saying, will we ever get to see John and Arthur sitting on a train talking to a guy next to them, you know, reading a newspaper? Well, it's already there. So I will be doing things like that in a way that still makes me feel like it's part of my story.
It's still, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. But no, I'll never be just like seeing a movie. It's not fun if one
and there also won't
can't
be
see.
any. There also won't be any reading entire tomes of books out loud.
Same reason. Yeah. I mean, could you imagine even that scene? It would be like, oh, okay, well now there's a guy walking the train and he's doing this.
Page 500.
Yeah.
All right. Jammer asks, what are your thoughts on the fandom viewing Arthur as a trans allegory, and was it intentional?
It's a good question. Arthur is a trans allegory?
No, John. Sorry, did I say Arthur?
Oh, yeah. I was like, that would be new. I don't
that would be
very... Okay, I want to be very careful with this. Let me take a moment just to speak clearly. I wanted and intended John's journey to speak of identity. I intended, especially the witch episode, to give a voice for people who may be in the trans community to feel heard against someone like the shitty aunt at, Thanksgiving dinner who says, that's not how you feel, and blah, blah, blah. That's kind of what the witch is meant to be. And John to kind of be recognizing and realizing who he is throughout that. My hesitancy in saying and coming right out and saying, yes, it's a trans allegory, it's because I am not trans. And there is an element where someone might feel like it's not fair that me as a white dude who's never had to deal with this stuff to speak on it. So I want to be very clear about my intention. I do not want to take any voice away from somebody in this community. Equally, I do want to try to speak to identity because I've met so many amazing, kind, hilarious, intelligent trans people in this community who have connected with this character. So hopefully I can say yes and no in a way that yes to the people who are trans and heard their story in that and saw what I was trying to do. Yes, I did write it for you. But also I hope you recognize that, no, I'm not trying to take anything away from your voice either. Because I recognize that I am not, I'm not that person. I'm not walking in your shoes. I don't want to ever try to pretend that I even have an ounce of what terrible, terrible stuff you must have to go through just in the world today, let alone. So from love and sympathy, I want to say both yes and no. Is that a good answer? I hope that's a clear answer. I'm sure people will find fault in it.
Well, we have absolutely someday got to have a longer conversation about writing the other because it's such an both of us have done it.
Yeah.
My book is about Chinese and Hong Kongers and Singaporeans, and I am none of those things. And like you intentionally writing, consciously writing a trans allegory is also writing the other. And I think that I've read a lot about it and studied a lot about it. And I think it boils down to like, are we going to get it all right? No, but also we shouldn't be making it such a precious thing because there just needs to be like, obviously, yes, as you're saying, you don't want to like take an authentic voice away from the world. But then also like when I was writing my book, I was like, well, I don't want to write another boring ass book about boring ass white people. I want to write something more interesting than that.
Totally.
Like, and 100%. I also, the thing I think about all the time is something I read from somebody who said, when you're writing a firefighter, you're not a firefighter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. And
and
listen, it's
even though
nuanced, obviously.
it's nuanced, obviously, but there's a kernel of the same thing there, which is you do research and you talk
Mhm.
to people and
Yes.
you do the best that you can, and you're never
Mhm.
going to get it 100% right. Um,
And I mean, on that episode, just to speak about what, like, I did a lot of research, and I pulled a lot of, like, you know, things that like mantras that the trans community would promote amongst themselves too, and tried to sew those in too, to again to try to give a little bit of that feeling that someone listening could also be like, yes, I've told myself that too, like that's what I want John to say. So, and I will say this to clearly answer the first part of Jammer's question: what are my thoughts on the fandom viewing John as a trans allegory? I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think and I've always said this, it was not intentional from the beginning. I totally didn't realize that, and it wasn't until a few uh, Discord members were like, wow, this is a thing, that I was like, oh wow, that's so cool, and that makes sense, and I love what it's become. And later again tried to add to it and build upon it, but yes, I love fan interpretations of it. I love fan interpretations of any of the stuff. I just might disagree with some of it, but not about this stuff. I think this is fantastic and exciting.
Pepper's just posted
Yeah, I love that image.
So good. All right. Quill and Oakley ask, this season we got to hear just a little more about Arthur's childhood. Will we get to know more about Arthur's past? And
Yes.
Excellent. How in depth, and then additionally, how in depth have you thought about Arthur's early life, especially in England? Do you have an idea to the location?
No. Well, do I have an idea? Yes, but it won't be revealed for a while, if at all.
Okay. Sparks says, as a Shakespeare nerd, I love the moments in Malevolent where the characters quote or reference his plays. How big of an inspiration would you say he is for you? And are there any more subtle, intentional parallels between his works and Malevolent that listeners may have missed?
That's a great question. I honestly I really loved Shakespeare in English class, like high school. I think because there's something very man, how to say this? There's something very, like, I don't know. I think my class was very much like, oh, these books are boring as shit, and I'm very much a contrarian. So I was like, oh well, then I'm gonna look into it. But when I was younger, my parents put me in acting, like after school. I remember it, O'Leary's School of Drama is where I went, and I was very shy. I was never on stage. In fact, when I was cast in Hamlet, I was Rosencrantz. It was like kind of like 5 lines. Just funny because it wasn't until years later I saw Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and I was like, oh man, this was like the role. This was so cool, and I didn't get to do anything with it. So I was in Hamlet, and I remember I didn't really learn much about it in school as much as I liked it, because I thought it was kind of not kitschy, but like it was kind of cool to be more like, yeah, this is cool. But the teacher of the drama school really helped kind of interpret it, to me. And I mean, good teachers do this. Shakespeare's entirely needs to be acted out. You can't sit in a room and like read it, other than like the soliloquies. You need to be up on stage moving around and like to see kind of what the vision is. To me, it's tough to read a play like that. But anyway, honestly, I've always thought the formatting of the way that the plays are written and all that kind of stuff, and the language is really neat. It's just neat. I'm by no means an expert. When I pull lines in, it's because I'm remembering something vaguely, and then I'm Googling it to be like, what was that line or whatever. But to me, this is more than anything a statement of Arthur's childhood, being the kind of drama kid who likes poems. And I see it as, his parents passed away and he needs to dive into something, and he starts writing poetry because someone suggests it, and he finds Shakespeare, the world's greatest poet. And a lot of this sort of like lingers, and then years later he starts branching out and reading the poetry that's published in the newspaper and the Boston Herald and the New Yorker, and this is where he's reading Rudyard Kipling and William Henley and stuff like that. And so to me, this is more a statement on like Arthur's character than me. But in terms of the inspiration from a young age, yes, I would say Shakespeare was pretty influential.
Cool. The rest of the Q&A is canceled. I'm just going to ask you questions about Arthur now.
Yeah. No. I'll press this. Oh, I pressed it once. Oops. An echo.
Nukuame asks, The Nightmare is my absolute favorite episode of not just Malevolent, but every podcast I've ever listened to.
Whoa.
Were there any specific inspirations or experiences that influenced or helped during the creation of the episode?
Yeah, dreaming. I get really frustrated with dream episodes of like my favorite shows because none of the dreams are ever the way I dream. Like, you get like a dream episode of Star Trek or something, and they're like walking down the hall, and like a man walks out and he's like, "Don't go there, Will." And then Will's like walks out, and then maybe someone's like holding a duck. And the writers are like, well, that's weird because he's holding a duck. It's like, no. In my dreams, it would be the duck talking. The hall would be upside down. I'd be naked, and my feet would be gremlins. Like my dreams are way weirder than any of the like very standard shit that you'd see. And the Nightmare, I think, and I appreciate who was this question? Oh, Nukuame?
Nukuame.
I appreciate you liking this episode and I do think a lot of people like this episode, but I do remember distinctly a lot of people did not like this episode because they felt it was too disconnected. They thought it was just kind of like a filler episode or whatever the fuck. They're wrong. But I think I had the most fun writing this episode in the series of the show because if any of you are like gamers, like Civilization, like a video game where you have to build something. If you play Minecraft, any sort of like creation game, it's always about the start. The start is always the most fun because it's just potential. You're just standing there on a green field in Minecraft and you get to do anything. Civilization, you get to pick your race, you get to pick where you start, and it's always like the end where it gets tough. The Nightmare was like a reset button. Nothing mattered. Yet I had this toolbox of characters that I could pull from. I was like, this is the best. It felt the most freeing I'd been since I started Malevolent, but even more so because I had all the context that would only enhance the jokes and the characters and all that kind of stuff. So I absolutely loved writing the episode, and I'm glad other people like it. And yeah, I can see other people liked it too, but I distinctly remember people being like, none of it matters. Get back to the, like, I want the show. But then a lot of people suck.
A lot of people do suck. I've always said that. I've said that for years.
Yeah.
I love getting into a space like that. It could be like a dream. Yeah, usually it's dreams because like you're saying, you have all of the stuff already, so it's better than being at the beginning.
You got a toolbox.
But then you can just like put two things that have never been together, and then they have like weird resonances and themes come up, and it's just so much fucking fun.
I love it. It was so freeing. And
does that mean we can get another dream episode?
No.
Damn it.
Because, and this is a thing that patrons know now, you can't do it twice. You can't press the reset button twice. You can only do it once. So when you do it once, swing for the fucking fences. And I think I did in the Nightmare. I was everyone's in on this.
Oh, you know who else did it really well was MASH. The MASH dream episode was fucking
I haven't
incredible.
seen. I know you're a MASH head.
MASH head. Yeah, that's what we are called in the community. Yeah.
I know it's really good, but I've seen like bits, but
they don't do the Trek thing of like, oh, somebody's just carrying a duck. They like everything is very strange and very thematic. So anyway.
I do like when dreams do that. Yeah,
right.
They're like really weird.
Really, yeah. Quinn asks, what's your favorite thing about John and favorite thing about Arthur where they're at right now in the story with all of their development?
I like that they're not fighting anymore. It got annoying for me as well. But listen, a lot of their fights are just natural progressions. Like that's kind of how it had to happen. Like they don't know each other that well. they disagree. One's a child, you know, one, like, they're gonna fight.
Mhm.
So for both of them, I'm glad they're not fighting anymore. My favorite thing about John right now is how it's tough to, I mean, I'm purposefully sort of getting them to a point where they are agreeing, not more, but they're recognizing, how do I put this? Well, 51 is that, so I can say this. Both of them see an end coming.
Mm.
And if you're sitting by your worst enemy or your best friend against a stone wall as a mushroom cloud appears on the horizon, you're not fighting them anymore.
Right.
If anything, you're going to throw your arms around them. So I think more than anything, there's an unspoken and spoken element of, yeah, okay, let's not worry about that anymore.
Mm.
And you can only do that, again, once, where I'm at in the story, you know, because if I had done that in season 2, like, oh yeah, okay, let's stop fighting because this is the end. It's like, well, then what's season 3, right? So there's an element of that coming. And I think with that is wisdom. I think both of them are wise in seeing the way the world really looks. And I think this is really defined by the opening of season 5, actually. People, again, I saw some takes on season 5 opener that were like, why did Arthur forgive John so much? Because if you'll recall, in intermezzo or just before intermezzo, it's revealed that John had been keeping this secret from Arthur about his time in the dark world. And then he offered to, Cain offered to John to wipe it from Arthur's memory, and John says yes. And they have a little fight at the beginning of season 5, but it's pretty much forgotten. And a lot of people were like, well, how? And it's like, well, because did you hear what he just heard?
Yeah.
They both just learned, like, hey, FYI, everything you want is going to be killed and brutalized in front of your eyes if you don't do what I want. So literally, Arthur's like, bigger fish, dude. And both of them are like that. They're like, yeah, back burner. Like, this doesn't matter right now. And I think that bigger goal is wisdom. Like, the idea of, like, okay, like, this is where we're at right now. And I like that, because to me, that feels more true to nature. You know, like Joe and I might have stupid disagreements. What do we eat for dinner? And then your kid falls or something, or you find out someone's sick, seriously sick in the family, and all drops away. You're like, who cares what you're bickering about? You know, this person, this matters. So I like that because it feels very human.
It is. It's the adage of the secret to the best relationships is a short memory.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And Arthur's thing, like, yes, it did feel a little bit sudden, but to me, it always read as it's a practicality that then with time becomes true. Like, we're just not going to deal with it right now. And then over time, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. And your feelings lessen about it. And
time is always the thing. And in fact, there's a wonderful song by Randy Newman, which I highly recommend everyone listens to. It's called Losing You, I believe. And it's about the theme of this song is, you know, but I know that I don't have time enough to ever get over losing you. And the story is, it's about this elderly couple that Randy Newman spoke to or something, who had lived through the Holocaust, who had lived through the trials and tribulations of life. But in their older age, in their 60s or 70s, their son died. And in speaking to Randy, one of the things that they said was, you know, like, we don't have time enough to get over this. If we were younger and this had happened, 60 years, you know, yeah, eventually my heart might stop breaking every morning. But I don't have time anymore. So we just have to live with this pain every day until we die. And I thought that concept of, like, having that time is like a blessing to so many of us. You know, you want that kind of early in your life, as horrible as it might be, because then you don't have time enough to get over it. I'll never get over losing you, is what the line is. And now I'm getting choked up thinking about it, but you should listen to it because it's a really good song.
Cool. Frisquito asks, Frisquito After spending so much time writing and playing Arthur and John, have they ever influenced a change in your personality or worldview?
Every time. Listen, I don't know if I've ever explicitly said this or if it's just been implied, or if I have, I forget. But when I'm writing the darkest episodes, it's because I need to say that to myself. Like, there's no coincidence that 51 came about the inauguration of the next Hitler. You know what I mean? Like, there's no coincidence that the theme of 51 was like, don't you dare fucking give up, because that's exactly what me and so many people need to, because they want you to give up. They want you to, it's not even about fighting. It's about surviving. Like, it's, I'm not saying, I'm not saying, and I'm going to use only context of Malevolent to keep it nice. I'm not saying you need to stand up and punch Lilith in the face. What I am saying is you just need to sit by that fucking fire, no matter what happens, and look her in the eye and say, I'm not going anywhere. And that was written because I needed to remind myself of that. And every time that's happened in the show, more often than not, when it gets really dark, like season 3, obviously, like you can tell it was like stuff I needed to hear. But like when it gets really meaningful, it's because I'm motivating myself to be like, okay, fucking do this now. So yeah, 100%. And that's why, listen, Malevolent is my heart. It's become my heart because that's like, I put too much of myself into it in a way that, I need to remind myself of things. I talk about my failures in obfuscated ways and sometimes direct ways, and my fears in direct and indirect ways. And all of the things that are in the show are things that I process in various ways. You know what I mean? So 100%, they have influenced my personality and worldview.
Oh, your answer made me start to cry a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
No, in a good way. We all needed to hear 51 when it came out, for sure.
That's why I released it today. I was like, okay, get this out there. Because I did want to mention something like that tonight too, right? Like,
yes, absolutely. All right, we're through round 3.
Whoa!
I know. We've got one more lightning round and then one more actual round.
We're cruising.
We're cruising, man.
This is great.
Whew.
Great. You're doing great.
All right. Thanks. So are you. Okay. Finger on the 8 ball.
On it.
Blue asks, will you ever reveal what did happen to the 3 soldiers?
Probably.
Moth asks, does Arthur play or enjoy any other instruments besides piano?
Parker Truthers unite.
Slate asks, in part 34, the Butcher, did you write out the lines John and Arthur were saying to each other while the Butcher was chasing them?
Oh, yes. Yes. There's a part where only we hear Arthur, but I wrote both.
Nice. Sure asks, was the music in the Butcher's head endogenic, which self-generated, naturally occurring, or exogenic, caused by some external force, possibly some god?
No, wasn't a god. This was a man horror. Not man, but like human horror.
Yeah, it was
a man horror.
Man's horror.
No, that was like,
it was endogenic, self-generated, naturally occurring.
Sure, if you want to label it. It was like, what's his name in Boondock Saints, minus the CD player.
Yeah,
Willem Dafoe.
Oh, what a good scene. Anyway, Jinx asks, will there be a Malevolent blooper reel?
No.
Austin asks, what was it that John recognized about you call it madness, but I call it love?
Red-handed Robin is Arthur Lester in another dimension.
I've always thought that. The Hastor asks, if it was completely free and would turn out exactly how you wanted, what kind of media would you want Malevolent to become?
Animated.
HD asks, what was the most surprising vote result in season 5?
I don't know.
Can't remember any votes. Moving on.
That's the problem. I mean, I could look at them. Something to do with
The witch, the prince, the
yeah, probably something like that.
the murder mystery.
God, season 5 has been long.
Yeah.
Not touching the body in the murder.
That was surprising. Queen asks, do you have any big questions for the current voters?
Why? Is my question to you. Why? No.
Why?
No, I don't got no questions. This works the other way, guys.
I have a special edition lightning round that's
nice.
Difficulty impossible, because I really liked these questions, but I want to see what your lightning round answer to them is.
Okay, so or
Ben
they have
asks,
to come last. Okay, go. Yeah.
If you had to pick one thing, what piece of advice would you give to anyone else attempting to tackle a solo audio drama?
Have a good story.
Zero asks, what's your greatest achievement?
My kids.
Kelly Falls, is Malevolent the most intense audio drama you've ever done?
No. Listen to Divisor.
Divisor. I knew it. Ava asks, if you could change one thing about Malevolent, what would it be and why? A voting outcome, a story event?
No. Nothing. I mean, nothing. I have a shitty answer, but I'm not going to say
it. Veritas asks, in one word, what would you say is the core theme of the final season, season 6? Example, season 3, grief, season 5, isolation/purpose.
Acceptance.
Ooh, okay. Okay, final round of questions.
Ooh, that was a good answer. I got chills my own answer.
That's how you know that shit's good. Okay.
Wait, what are the stages of grief?
Grief. That's a great. Yeah, there's 5 stages.
Bargaining.
Yeah, there's
anger.
Denial. Bargaining. Anger, depression, acceptance.
I don't think depression is depression one.
Yeah, I thought so.
I thought it's bargaining, denial, acceptance is at the end.
Yeah.
Oh,
denial's the first one, and then bargaining.
Anger.
I swear it's
acceptance.
Like
but depression is not really an action. Like, well, I guess it is, but
it's
denial,
like,
anger. Oh, it is depression. Okay.
Like
right.
It's not a good word for, I think, what they're trying to go for there.
No,
it's
I agree.
But
you are right.
Despair, maybe despair.
So there we go. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. There's everyone but season 1. I mean, it works for anger. Season 3.
Yeah, that's so
5
true.
would be depression, probably not. But last would be acceptance. All right, I'm ready.
All right, round 4. Yami asks, how did you decide on the voice for Antoine?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I just was throwing some to Joe. I was like, what if he's like sort of peasanty, blah 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 blah. And it's funny because I've done a lot of voices, but Joe is like, that's the best voice. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, it doesn't sound like you at all. And I was like, okay.
It didn't.
I'm happy for it. It's a voice you can only really do in medieval England, because if I try to pull that out in fucking 1930s Arkham, people are going to throw shoes at him. Honestly, it was just a bit of trial and error. I mean, especially at this time, early days, I could throw any fucking thing at the wall. It didn't matter. But now I really got to think it through and be like, okay, who am I, gruff Scottish or am I soft Scottish?
Yeah. You're getting really into the weeds there.
That's all I got, right?
Vanessa Shade asks, was it hard to make the voice for the witch / the hag?
Yes, because again, I kind of only got one Marie in me, and I had to kind of figure out, and it kind of came with the back of the throat and like sort of just having it crack a little bit. And it's a bit Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, bother. I'm Winnie the Pooh here. I hope everything's okay. With a little bit more gruff on it and a little bit more like Marie spoke. So you could pretend this is Winnie the Pooh.
Oh,
no. Oh, bother.
Oh, bother.
Oh, bother.
Now everyone's thinking, oh shit, that's the hack. It's Winnie the Pooh.
Not so scary now. Charlie asks, how did you come up with the voices for new characters as they're introduced throughout the show? I think we just kind of covered that.
Yeah.
Aki asks, I know Joe has voice acted in Malevolent with screaming, laughter, and such, and you've included audio of children. I'm assuming your own based off what I remember from the commentary. Very cute, by the way.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to ever bring anyone else in or have them act out lines for a recurring character?
No.
Yep. No.
Nope. Listen. People have said this many, many times. I bring another voice actor. I can never guarantee a Monday delivery anymore or a Wednesday delivery, whatever I do. My production rate is here's an easy way to put it. The minute anything in Malevolent doesn't rely just on my shoulders, you add in a factor of I can't direct it. I can't depend on myself.
Yep.
My life right now, I'm very, very fortunate that I get to work from home and that I get to do this and other things in this ilk. And sometimes that means I'm working at 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes that means I'm working at, Sunday morning during INVICTUSCON, stuff like that. It means a lot of it is nebulous. If I start introducing other elements like that, I am going to lose the ability to be my own driving force all the time. Because I guarantee, no matter how amazing the person is, there is going to be a time where I'm like, I could work on it now, but I don't have the fucking
stuff. Yep.
I could, with me, I can jump in the booth and re-record the line. I can add a fucking line. I can add a character. I can cut a fucking character. But when you throw in something else, you know what I mean? It just becomes more complicated. So I will definitively say, other than Joe and the kids or whatever, I'm never going to have anyone else in Malevolent because it just becomes too difficult. And I know people are like, why doesn't he bring in, like a female voice actor? Why doesn't he bring in? I hear you. Totally. It's not going to happen. I don't want to work that way. The thing I love about Malevolent is I don't need to ever fucking worry about someone else. I love that I can do it whenever I want.
Yep.
I wrote the episode 258 today. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever it is, Ren. I don't know. But I wrote it today. I don't have to worry about sending those lines off to someone or changing it and being like, oh, actually that line is here. When it comes to creativity, I don't ask for many what do you call it when you give someone a little space? I don't ask for many you know what I mean? Like passes, I guess. I don't ask for many passes in terms of like what you guys need from me. But I'm dependable. I work every week. I release on time. To a degree, I work for the patrons. I'm asking you, be cool with the one voice because I don't want to fucking my interest will sour. I will be like, whatever. I don't want to wait on these lines.
Yeah. That's been such an inspiration for me, knowing that that's your answer to this question. It always has been, and you've been very vocal about. Like, it's
more vocal now because. And listen, I have friends with tons of shows, and they're all amazing. This is not nothing about quality, but I've heard them to me even be like, Harlan, give me your lines. I want to work on it tonight. Every time I do a voice for Dylan for Woebegone, he's always like, I want to work on it Monday. And there's been times like I forget and I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, don't worry. Like 3 other people haven't sent the lines. I would cancel the show. I'd be like, I'm not doing that. Forget it. I'd never want this to happen. It would drive me nuts.
I just did a project where I had to rely on a vendor. And I never want to do it again.
It's just listen. And I think I have earned the trust of the audience when I look at them in the eye and say, you don't think I can fucking do this myself by now? Like, I can do it myself.
Right. Exactly.
You're seeing it.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, you want it to be better? You want it to be even better?
You're
Tough
actually
shit. It won't be.
you're writing the next episode as we're doing this Q&A.
I am.
You've
It's
been-
open right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm proving it. I don't need to prove it anymore.
No.
Thank you, Seer.
Slate asks, when or how do you decide a new song is needed? How do you go about brainstorming and composing the new tune?
It's a great question. Honestly, it's if I don't have a piece that fits the mood. Again, the last piece that I made that I can't talk about. I made a piece for 256. No, 257. And I knew the scene and I recorded the scene. And as I was editing it, I kind of, I dragged in my other tracks. Oh, sorry, I should put this on screen. Dragged in my other tracks. And I was like, yeah, nothing suits it. So I went downstairs and I played a new piece and one and done. That I would say is the big thing. I like record very quickly and very simply. I like do a very, I'm also not trying to claim that I'm any sort of great recording artist or anything like that. It gets the job done. And truth be told, I think that's one of my strengths. I think a lot of I watch movies sometimes, especially I find this big with 80s and 90s movies where the soundtrack is really overproduced. I always think of the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh yeah.
Where he's dragging his nails and the music's you're like less would be
Less,
more.
Please. Yeah.
And to me, I'm big on less is more. Sometimes you don't even know if you're hearing piano notes in the background because I just kind of want it to support. And the times where I forget that, I think don't work as well for me. I prefer it that way. So that's it's entirely dependent on the scene. All of the pieces I wrote, same with scratch, all of 51's original music. As I was editing it, I was like, oh, this needs a theme here. This needs a moment that's being introduced to kind of set the stage. And that's this music you hear when you're sitting there. I was listening to it. I was listening to my edited thing and I was just playing the piano along to it the way you would a movie and scoring it. This is the word. I don't know why I fucking say that. I'm scoring it. I'm kind of yeah, that sounds good. And that goes there,
Roses of Envy asks, we know that in the soundtrack, piano is Arthur and cello is John. Have you thought of instruments representing other characters in Malevolent?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I love Roses of Envy. Huge shout out. Their music, musical prowess or the perspective that they have musically on my work makes me feel such an imposter in the best way possible, because I'm wow, they're taking so much out of what I am just being do I really love it. So huge shout out to them.
No, Harlan, it's all intentional. It's all
yeah, super intentional. Yeah, I mean, the obvious one is Butcher. I literally downloaded Irish woodwinds, and he's got flutes and stuff like that. He had his whole kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I could probably pick an instrument for everyone, but not everyone deserves their own theme. And moreover, it wouldn't fit. You know what I mean? Again, going back to my previous questions, I feel music has to be used sparingly, ironically, for such a musical show. And I do, like I said, I do think I sometimes overuse it, but I do think when it is done sparingly, it feels good. Those are the times I feel I'm most successful. But yeah, Larson's a piccolo, obviously. Fucking Larson.
No, Larson would be a school recorder.
No, yeah, maybe, eh? Oscar's a violin.
Oh.
Daniel's a big, a double bass. Or tuba. No, he's tuba.
Oh, tuba. That's
you know
really
what I mean?
good.
I can pick one for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Queen's done such a good job. Let's throw her a bone. What instrument would Noel be?
Noel? I mean, Noel would be a nice fucking acoustic guitar, like a little bit like a strumming, he's oh yeah, I'm one of those first guys that's playing the blues before the blues were even a fucking thing,
Yeah. Luna Maria asks, in episode 1, when Arthur plays the piano at John's coaxing, what's it like recording music while acting through it? such as the moment like that, where the performance is meant to be more hesitant rather than a confident, precise musician.
In episode 1?
Yeah, it's like really early on. John's
Yeah.
like,
You know
on
what?
the-
A better version, sorry, not better. I'm not trying to, but episode 1 is kind of a tricky one because I replaced the music. But in
Ah.
Intermezzo, Kane
yes.
forces Arthur to play Thoreau's Goodbye, and I find that so much more fun. Because imagine you have a song that you want to play or that you get to play, and you get the option to fuck it up. Because like it's like the point of the scene is to play it kind of crappy. So it's really nice to be like, oh, I made a wrong note, whatever. I just keep going. But I do the same thing. I score it. So I have a little piano. You can't see it, obviously, but like right in front of me, I have just a 2-octave. It's called an Akai Professional MPK Mini. Actually, my mother and father-in-law bought it for me for my birthday last year. And I use that now for like all the simple scoring. And I have a pedal under my foot, so I can literally play and record right here, which is really nice because sometimes all you need is just like a few notes of like here and there, and a lot of the simple themes are just that. So when I'm doing that and like kind of messing it up, it's really easy just to like be listening along, and then he stops here. Yeah, it's fun.
Riskier Daisy asks, what kind of preparation and research did you do to achieve the butcher's voice? I noticed whilst listening to him that you used a lot of common Irish phrases and words that Irish people use every day that I've never heard represented by other Irish characters in media before. And it made not only myself, but my parents very impressed with the quality of your Irish accent.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm going to take a stab and say maybe you're American, Riskier Daisy, or your parents are Irish, or you born in Ireland. But regardless, from a Canadian standpoint, we are very different than Americans in terms of like our culture. And I think this is a lot, and I've mentioned this before, I think this is a big reason why I really appreciate like Canadian humor is because we're not just influenced by American humor, but we're heavily influenced by humor from UK and Ireland. So we kind of have like, we grew up all on, BBC programming. So all those shows, Father Ted, Keeping Up Appearances, Mr. Bean, all of these shows were our standard broadcasting shows. We didn't have CBC original. I mean, yeah, our program is called CBC. You guys have BBC. So we literally had to have our channels filled with British programming just to kind of keep the airwaves going. So that was a heavy influence to a lot of Canadians my age and obviously older. And I think just a lot of those slipped into my lexicon, probably. My grandfather is also Irish. Excuse me. He was born in Ireland and emigrated to Canada when he was older. Oh, you're Irish. Okay, perfect. Oh, there you go. Awesome. What I more meant to say was I would bet when it comes to the American Irish are such a different breed because it's very much the Irish immigrated to America and became their kind of own culture in America. Whereas Canadian Irish, a lot of the people that are Irish, still have family and go to Ireland pretty often. It's a little different skewed Canadian Irish than American Irish is kind of what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I appreciate that. I'm very happy to hear that. And yeah, I don't know. Like when my grandfather died, I remember there was a lot of, phrases and sayings, and we did an Irish wake and all the kind of stuff that he'd wanted. And I guess it's just sort of subconsciously sneaked in. Sneaked in. I have not seen Dr. Who. Autumn asked.
Nikki asks, is the current plan for Malevolent Season 6 to mostly wrap up the Invictus meta mystery / Big Bad? And then she also throws in a reference to a character in Grim, and the other one in the beginning was Me on My Side and Life on Yours.
No. Malevolent, as it currently exists, is, I would say, from season 3 onward, in mid-season 2, is intentioned to be a story of the Blackstone. And in a larger picture, Cain wanting said Blackstone and his goal with said Blackstone.
Right.
In the bigger meta universe of Invictus, in the beginning was me on my side and life on your side, is not touched in this story. So there's an answer.
It's a good answer. Good question. Good answer.
Great question. I'm excited.
Vampire V and Ajax want to know, do you have any plans for future projects after Malevolent ends? And then Zero and the Hastur want to know, once episode 60 comes out, are you going to keep using these characters or this world for spin-offs just for fun? Or are you going to drop the Malevolent universe and move on to something else?
Well, so basically the
Retconned.
Oh, dang.
Damn.
Well,
maybe next year.
Who knows?
Who knows? But do you have any few projects in the works right now that you could maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things, not typical what we're working on. No audio dramas right now. After Divisor, it's interesting. Divisor fulfilled a hole in Malevolent that I wanted to really explore thematically. But I've found more joy lately in pouring more themes into Malevolent than creating new products. And I guess what I mean to say is I'm always open to saying more and doing more. But in terms of what is exciting me right now, I'm really excited about Dice Shame. We have new characters on there. We have new players on there. I'm really excited about Malevolent. I'm excited for where it's going. The projects that I'm bringing, that I'm doing that are beyond this right now are more RPG skewed, which I'm really excited about.
Very exciting.
Yeah, I'm working on something with a friend that has a very unique premise, sort of Severance meets alien abduction meets tarot cards is a way to kind of pitch it. And I'll be talking more about that this year for sure. Yeah, I'll tell you more about it, obviously, but publicly, that's as much as I'll say.
You wanted to loop back around to special episodes akin to Benevolent.
Done already?
Oh yes, we're done. We're done.
Huzzah! With 7 minutes to spare. What did I want to loop back around
on? Special episodes akin to Benevolent.
Oh, listen. It's sort of like the Nightmare. It's not that it only works once, but you kind of only want to do it once. I know friends and I know shows that do a special episode every year, or they do a Valentine's and they do whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
there's a point of diminishing returns for me, where I'm like Benevolent, I think was like Divisor, was like anything where I felt really inspired. I remember I was literally in the shower and I was like missing those old Bing Crosby specials where he's just sitting at the piano and talking about the snow outside. And then I have a place in my heart for all that kind of stuff. And I wanted a little bit of Christmas spirit. So it flowed really easily to be like, here's something that just I really want to do. But since that success, or since that fun, I think it's turned more to feeling like an obligation, which I don't feel obligated, but I think the expectation is now like there, which makes me, as you mentioned earlier, kind of the contrarian, being like, yeah, no, then I'm not going to do it. Like you mentioned, the more you ask, the less I'm going to do it. It's more that the more it's expected, the less it's going to happen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because to me, the same with, and the patrons know this, is the same with the 8 balls. The minute you ask for a song, or the minute you start asking for an 8 ball, is the minute you'll never get another 8 ball. And that's why the 8 Ball is so fucking good. Like,
Mhm.
and that's why Benevolent, in my opinion, is so fucking good. And that's why the farming sim is so fucking good. Because if you saw those coming, I failed. And I think they're successful because you didn't see those coming. Who on earth, when I first dropped that 8 Ball, was like, oh, I know what this is, and then played the video.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that. The same with Benevolent. And I really wanted to have fun with it. So what I will say is this. Is there going to be another special episode? No. But is there going to be a lot more things like 8 Ball or Benevolent or farming sim? Things that I get excited about? Of course. The same way that I could pull out an episode like 51 that changes the entire format of a part, or the episode like The Butcher, where suddenly the perspective's entirely switched, or an episode like The Witch. If you can trust that I can tell a story in a way that keeps you kind of like, oh shit, that's cool, then fucking trust that I'm going to do more cool shit too.
Just fucking go with it, bro.
It's not going to be cool because you tell me it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool because I'm going to know it's cool, and I'll tell you.
You don't have to tell anybody. It'll be so fucking cool that it stands. Yeah, totally.
I know it's cool. I'm hip. I'm with it.
We are so cool.
So cool. Coolest.
Speaking of cool shit, we've got a lot of cool shit happening this weekend that I'm really excited about.
Me too.
So this weekend I'm hosting 3 panels. I think that they're pretty fucking cool. Saturday at 11 a.m. I'm hosting We Finished Our Project and So Can You with Trin and Megan. Saturday. Please hold your applause till the end.
Sorry.
Saturday at 4:30 p.m. I'm hosting Fan Artist Mad Lib with Flea, Peppers, Danny, and Stuff and Such. And then Sunday at 11 a.m. I'm hosting Come Craft With Us with Demelza, where she's going to finish your Harlan, your plushie on stream. I know. Which is going to be really cool. And then she's going to take a suggestion from the audience of what new plush to make. So, and then everybody, I know, right? Yeah, it's going to be. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I got to get in on that.
Yeah.
Hold on. Who should it be? It should be a Malevolent character, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you could make her do Red. Red as a plushie would be really cute.
Red wouldn't have the bank, though.
Yeah.
Yorick.
Yorick.
I would be down for Yorick.
A skull plushie, a Yorick plushie would be.
Who else is cool in the show? Oscar with one little arm? That'd be cool.
That'd be really good.
Save on stuffing.
Yeah. With like little things coming out of it.
That'd be pretty fucking funny, actually.
That would be really funny. Oh, man. Yeah. There's a lot of good options. And then everybody should bring your crafts for that panel. And we'll all craft together. Artist Alley is open. Cosplay gallery is open. There's a costume contest. I have a booth at Artist Alley. If you would like con exclusive, I'm never printing these again because this was the vendor that I'm never doing this again. CDs.
Ooh.
Arthur and John. They've both got a 16-page hand collaged art book that's all themed to Arthur and John.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Look at that. Wait, what's it called? What's the title of the CD?
Arthur's is called The Wolves Are Supposed to Be Out There.
Whoa.
And John's is called Fall Back on Your Old Ways.
Oh, that's metal. Those are lines from the show, right?
Yeah. Those are lines from the show.
I don't know, whatever. I remember the Wolves one. I remember because he's like, that's the thing he says about Larson.
Yeah. And in my copy of the transcript, I highlighted it, and the comment was Arthur thesis statement.
Yeah.
Fall back on your old ways is what Kane says to John in either 40 or Intermezzo.
Yeah, that's good. Good picks.
Yeah.
Good title picks.
Thank you. Yeah, these are yours. Since I'm in Canada, I'm getting you're getting them.
Fuck yeah! That's all I really wanted.
Yeah.
Where do I get?
Fuck everybody else.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then, and the final thing is that there's a mystery stream that I'm doing on my voice channel on Saturday, right after the
Shamers.
hang. Yeah.
Joe mentioned it in the opening, and I've seen it, and it's. I won't say anything. I can't say anything.
Can't say anything. Anything else?
For me, no. I'm good. Should we do another 8-ball just for fun?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Should I do this one? Should I do the one I cut off earlier?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You've heard it here first, folks. Season 6 of Malevolent isn't the end.
Is it true? Is it a gag?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Should we leave it there?
We should leave it there.
Thank you so much, Ren. This was a blast.
Thank you, Harlan.
Let's do it. See y'all
You're on the
later.
table.
Bye. Oh, yeah, around the table. That's right. Bye.